Hi everyone, Tony here. Before we get to today's show, I want to thank one of our listeners, Amy Feinberg of Amelia Scarlett Studio. She's a tax litigator by day, and after listening to our last episode, where some of my comments made it seem like sole proprietors don't have a profit motive, she reached out to let us know that the IRS absolutely expects sole proprietors to have a profit motive. She also sent a helpful link explaining it all. The show notes have been updated to add this link and to shout out Miss Amy. Thank you for keeping us on our toes over here at Crank Headquarters. And now, on to the show.
I'm Carrie.
I'm Toni, and we are
Two Cranky Creatives.
What are we cranky about today, Toni?
Carrie. Today, we are cranky about that pervasive myth that you have to use Adobe Illustrator to be successful in this business.
Yep.
Yep.
And
we're going to do
everywhere.
some myth busting.
Yes,
Yep.
Mythbusting. Yes.
All right.
Let's debunk.
Did you watch that show?
Oh
Did
my
you watch
God,
the
I love
Mythbusters?
Mythbusters
Me too.
because they're always blowing shit up.
Right. And to this day, every time I stay in a hotel, I remember their episode where they proved that a simple chain lock is like the hardest to break down. Right. So those weird ass things that they have in hotels, actually people can get through those. But, you know.
Oh, the bar
So,
thing that like,
yeah.
that, like, oh, interesting. Mine is the one I remember is I didn't know that like powdered coffee creamer, like Coffee Mate, is flammable.
Oh shit.
And it is. And so they put like hundreds of gallons of it or whatever pounds of it in a silo of some sort, and they blew it up. And that's what I remember was that Coffee Mate is explosive / flammable.
Yeah, no, I love that show. We watch it all the time. Yeah. So we're going to do our own myth busting. We don't get to get, no cool experiments. We're not going to blow anything up other than the myth itself. But so we are going to talk about the fact that and we're just going to start with the fact that it is fundamentally untrue that you absolutely have to use Adobe Illustrator to be successful. Full stop, period. I don't care what you've been told. It is not true.
Yep.
No.
And
that's a wrap. No, I'm just kidding.
We're done, guys. Bye. Right. That would be the quickest podcast episode ever. I have to speak from personal experience too, because I came from the world of Illustrator. I was a graphic designer. Illustrator was the software that I was most comfortable with, and I used it for 20 plus years. But I can tell you, as an artist that still regularly licenses my art, 95% of my licensing clients don't even care. They want a JPEG. They want a flat, high resolution 300 DPI, RGB, not CMYK, JPEG. So you can create that in Illustrator, but you can also create it in Procreate or Photoshop or Affinity or by hand by scanning it in. So you definitely, it is not a requirement to get your art licensed at all.
Correct. And I think, let's acknowledge where most myths have an origin seed of truth somewhere, right? And I think if we look back over the history, where this probably came from was the fact that technology has evolved and we have higher processing speeds. We have greater storage. We have all of these things. And I think Adobe Illustrator was a response to the fact that you needed small files and you needed to be able to process things in large sizes that didn't eat up your processor speed, right? And I have absolutely no scientific basis, or I have no way to prove that, but that is my belief about kind of like where all of this has come from, because vectors essentially are mathematical equations represented on screen as diagrams. And so the actual file itself is really, really tiny compared to, say, a Photoshop file, which, because it's pixel based, it's raster, it's a raster art, you have so much more information in that file. A 12 by 12 in Illustrator is going to be minuscule compared to a 12 by 12 something in Photoshop, right? There's so much more data in that Photoshop file. But then we also have the advent of digital printing. We also have the advent of, we have so much more technology at our fingertips now that that whole concept of you must use Illustrator. And I'm not sure where or how that became the pervasive myth inside of surface design, but it does exist. And, the truth, like I can say unequivocally, I personally have never done a licensing deal where they required me to provide an Illustrator file. I have had a few client gigs where whatever printer they were using was requesting an Illustrator file, and that was fine. I provided the Illustrator file. No big deal. And I'm sure that had everything to do with scaling to whatever they were having printed out,
Yeah.
But for surface pattern, especially if you're a textured artist, right? You have people that are doing analog art, that's going to create a textured file. Those of us that are doing watercolor and stuff like that through Procreate or textured art in Procreate, you're gonna that is a textured file. It's a raster based product, and you can bring those into Illustrator, and you can do image trace and all that other stuff. But it's not going to it's either A, it's not going to keep all of the texture, or B, you're going to have to image trace it in a way that you're going to blow up the file size anyway. So you might as well keep it in Photoshop,
Yeah. And it always looks weird too. Like I have tried in the past, because I came from Illustrator and I was more comfortable with Illustrator. I got this like uncomfortable feeling. I'm like, well, what if I want to make this bigger? What if I want to be able to change the colors or whatever? So I would take something that was created with texture and then put it in Illustrator and vectorize it. And all of a sudden I've got 3 billion anchor points in that file.
Yep.
Now, first of all, all of a sudden it's like a huge file. Secondly, resizing it takes forever and or crashes the software because it is so huge because of all those anchor points. And it's actually impossible to recolor it anyway, which is one of the benefits of Illustrator, because if I take something that has shades of blue and shades of brown and shades of red, my color palette isn't going to be 5 colors. I can simplify it to 5 and shades of that, but then it starts getting messy when you're trying to recolor it. Even if you're using there is a tool in Illustrator where you can kind of use like a color wheel, but that gets complicated and messy too and time consuming. And it's like, it's like at that point, all of a sudden you're like, wait, why am I doing this? Why don't I just leave it as a raster file and keep all of its original charm and not try to, turn this into a wonky looking thing that has these weird swirly. That's one thing I hate in Illustrator. If I vectorize something with like little tiny dots of texture, it creates this like loop-de-loop thing or a little weird pointy sharp shape that just looks it's like right there. You can tell by looking at it. Oh my God, they vectorized this and it is not good. It looks terrible.
Exactly. And to your point, there are times where I'm walking through like TJ Maxx or something. And I'm like, oh, they image trace that. Oh, they image trace that. Oh, they image trace that.
I know. I've seen those little weird anchor points. I'm like, I'll be in TJ Maxx too or wherever, and I'm like, amateur hour.
Right.
Yeah.
But, I do have to set the record straight. I know that I have gained a reputation as somebody who hates Illustrator. And this is not true. My antagonism towards Illustrator really originated because I am I'm a raster-based artist. I draw and paint and Procreate. And now I'm doing a lot of analog art. And image trace fucks my shit up, right? I don't want the way it looks when you image, and there's a time and a place, like there are times where people do it well and it's like, oh, it creates its own style, but they clean it up, right? So it looks intentional versus where, oh, you just rasterize something or you just image trace something and you didn't clean it up and it looks like shit. But, and so because my work is so textured, I was like, I'm losing so much of what makes my art my art. And then I started getting more into geometrics and things like that. And so now there are use cases for me where, I don't go to Illustrator anymore, and that'll be the next part of our conversation, but where I would go to Illustrator and be like, this makes the most sense for me to do this in Illustrator. So that's where I'm just going to do it. And sometimes that included me taking something from Procreate and bringing it into Illustrator and image tracing it, but the use case was there, right? Like it made sense for me to do this in Illustrator versus I have this great watercolor motif and I'm going to lose every bit of personality as soon as I image trace it, and I'm going to blow up the file size. So what's the fucking point anyway? Kind of thing. So yeah.
And you know, I've seen art that's raster that is cleaned up in Illustrator, but I know that takes forever. And it takes, think about how much time it takes you to sit there, draw something, scan it in, then clean it up versus draw something, scan it, and then have that be your end result. That's like half the time, if not, an eighth of the time. Because the cleanup is what takes forever. And I don't know, how it is now, but for the last 10 or so years, Illustrator didn't have native tools that were really worth a shit to clean it up quickly. I had to use plugins from shout out, and they are amazing plugins, Astute Graphics. Very, very good quality, and they do amazing things that I didn't even know you could do in Illustrator, and they do make it a lot faster, but you do have to pay extra for those. And you have to have a subscription. You also have to keep it up to date, which is fine. You have to keep Illustrator up to date too, but it's just an extra add-on versus Illustrator didn't ever really build much that was, yes, they have an image trace. Yes, they have a path simplify, but that does not do nearly enough.
Right.
So
and to Adobe's credit, they've introduced a lot of native tools that are definitely more helpful. But like for me, and I've said this before, I would say 99% of the repeat patterns you see from me are done flowing between Procreate and Photoshop. It's either completely done in Procreate, or I did the motifs in Procreate and I brought them into Photoshop. That remaining 1%, they're geometrics and they're done in Illustrator, But so, this myth, and then it forces people to learn a product they don't necessarily need to learn. It takes people who are already using Procreate and makes them feel like that's not enough. And it totally is. Now, I'm going to go on record and say it is still more complicated to create a pattern in Procreate. And hopefully Procreate's, like the software development gods will like put a little bug in their ear to like fix that and make it easier to do seamless repeat patterns in Procreate. But you can do them exclusively there. You don't need to subscribe to Photoshop. You don't need to subscribe to Illustrator. If you're doing raster-based work, bring it into a raster-based program. Now, Carrie, do you want to tell people what you discovered about using the pattern preview to make your patterns, though, and like the limitations that happen if you ever want to leave Photoshop at that point? Because you discovered that recently.
I did. So I was trying to do the goodbye Adobe thing semi-recently because Affinity/Canva came out with, their free version, it's a desktop only as of this recording. But it can do a lot of things. You can also switch between raster and vector really easily, but it can do a lot of the same things that Photoshop and Illustrator can do. But one of the things I've run into is, so Photoshop has something that I do love and I use all the time is their pattern preview. So I will go into Procreate, I will draw a bunch of motifs. What I'll do is I'll draw them all in the same artboard or all the same file, so that my motifs are all the same size and my stroke is the same width and thickness because I do use a lot of line work. So that way, I know that like this dog and that dog are going to have the same thickness of line. Anyway, but then I will import those into Photoshop and then put them into a pattern preview, a file in Photoshop, turn them into smart objects, and then do pattern preview, which is great. It's really amazing and quick and whatever, but pattern preview is proprietary technology that that Photoshop uses. And if you have a PSD file of a pattern that you created in Photoshop, and then you go to open it in like Affinity, for instance, the Canva Affinity version, and I did try it in GIMP as well, you lose your repeats. You end up with the stuff that it just can't read the file, and you lose your pattern completely, and you can't change it or fix it. It's not even the issue of it's outside your bounding box or your artboard. It literally, the repeat goes away. And it's not like you have your tile and everything's cut off. It just can't read that. So then it gets all jumbled and wonky. And I was like, oh no, because I have dozens and dozens, probably hundreds at this point, of patterns that I've created in Photoshop. And I can't open them in to make change. Let's say somebody says, hey, can you move this dog over there? Or can you put this ball over there? Or can you do anything or change this and that? You can't. I would have to recreate the patterns all over again from scratch. And so that kind of sucks. But yeah.
No, so that's obviously proprietary technology. And that was really interesting to me because that's not how I create patterns in Photoshop at all. So, I have actions and shout out to Mandy Corcoran. I took her Photoshop Patterns Unleashed course and got her, I think she calls it like pattern magic. I forget, but she provided all these actions. And so I am physically placing the motifs on the artboard in Photoshop. I'm not using pattern preview to make my patterns at all. I just use them to like view and like, okay, like use it as a view, like give me it kind of all put together. Is it working kind of situation? So, so fortunately for me, my Photoshop documents don't have that particular limitation, but that is something to be aware of if you are using pattern preview in order to build your patterns versus just kind of see what they look like if they're all stitched together. But this again goes into, quite frankly, Photoshop has more sophisticated pattern building technology than Illustrator does. But I would also throw out in the world, we now have Affinity and we have Inkscape. Well, Inkscape's always been there, but now we've got Affinity. And Affinity is already seated in the surface pattern world, right? There's always been that cadre of people who were using Affinity. And I actually bought it when it was still Affinity Designer before Canva acquired it. I just never took the time to learn it because I opened it up and was like, this is completely unfamiliar and I don't have time to learn something new right now. So I'm just going to not.
It's definitely a different interface than Adobe.
Right, exactly. So so I never learned it. And then when Canva bought it, I definitely went and downloaded it. Got a couple perks because I was, I had owned Affinity Designer. Like they sent us like a font pack and some other things that's not available through the free version. And fully intend to learn it, but just again, still don't have time right now. And nothing vector based is really my bread and butter, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? So I don't have the urgency to learn it either. But I will say I divested of Adobe Creative Cloud. I maintained Photoshop because I have a big art show coming up. It involves some pattern design. And I was like, I cannot risk the integrity of my work for this art show because I have to learn a new system, right? So I did maintain Photoshop, but I did get rid of everything else. And so I just want to throw out into the world Inkscape, right? Inkscape has been around for years. I used it for years because I refused to subscribe to Adobe. And the funny thing is, the only reason I subscribed to Creative Cloud at all was because of the fact that InDesign would let you publish your portfolio and then keep it up to date, and you didn't have to constantly republish it. So, but even that is like not worth it to me because Adobe charges so much money.
Oh, and I have a workaround for that, FYI.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah,
for
sure. I'd love to know about that. So,
I can share that real quick, but
go ahead.
Before we go. Well, so instead of worrying about one thing that sucks about InDesign portfolio that you have published online is, yes, you can update it, but you're kind of limited by like InDesign's like server working, and because it's hosted by InDesign, it's hosted by Adobe. And also the layout isn't very, you can't make a lot of changes to the layout. So you just have this weird, like, it looks like a old fashioned, like 1990s, like flip book, like, window or whatever. It's very weird. All I do now is I have a PDF, good old fashioned PDF. You can create it in all kinds of different software and export a multi-page document as a PDF. I upload it to Google Drive, and then I just have that like PDF linked, like embedded into my site, my Squarespace site. And then every single time I want to update my portfolio, I do have to export a new version, a new PDF, but then I just replace the file in Google Drive. It's the same file name.
Yeah.
So it's pulling the
Yeah, that
file
makes
name,
sense.
not the actual file. Yeah. And it's like, and that
Mhm.
doesn't cost me anything. I don't have to pay Adobe to host it either because it's Google Drive.
Right.
So anyway,
Yeah.
that's my workaround.
And they're like ISUU
Mhm.
is another where you can like make, and that's even like another flipbook style. I mean, there's so many other things out there, but I was in my early pattern days and I was like, oh my God, let me, jump on the Adobe bandwagon, but I had been an Inkscape and a GIMP user for 2 decades or however long, like way back into like whenever they first came out, because I remember when you got Adobe on a disc. You know what
Oh
I'm
yeah.
saying? And like,
Oh yeah. You better not
and
lose
then,
that disc either.
right? Oh my God. And then whenever they went to subscription, because I was like a couple versions behind at that point, I was like, okay, done. And so I started looking for alternatives and I found Inkscape. Now, what I'm about to say is my own personal experience. I'm not going to say that I have exhaustively tested the features of Inkscape, but I have not, as of right now, found something that I could do in Illustrator that I cannot do in Inkscape. And Inkscape is free. Now,
Mhm.
the drawback. Inkscape is an open source, type of platform. So there's volunteers that are developing this, and I think that translates just a little bit into the user experience. My career began as a usability expert and user interface design, and so I don't agree with all of their choices around how maybe they label some things or describe some things. But once you figure it out, and there's a shit ton of YouTube videos to help you figure it out, it makes sense. You get used to it, just like with anything. So I definitely am big on the Inkscape wagon. I have downloaded it on all of my various software. They do not have an iPad equivalent that I'm aware of, but again, I haven't sought that out either because I never drew in Illustrator either. Like I never used Illustrator on the iPad.
Mhm.
So I wouldn't, that's just not how I use the software. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? But, and I will tell you, like, I personally think GIMP has some superior functionality than Photoshop. But, that said, I haven't used GIMP in many years. So I haven't sat down to figure out how to do like a repeat pattern or anything like that, and they don't have
Mhm.
actions, which is the main thing. That actions and smart objects are both proprietary, I want to say too. I know smart objects are
Yep.
proprietary. I'm not sure about the actions, but GIMP doesn't have actions. And I rely so heavily on actions at this
Yeah.
point that that is one of the reasons I maintained my Photoshop subscription.
And
But
mock-ups too. We just talked about this today.
yeah,
Mock-ups,
but
if
that's
you
because
have Photoshop mock-ups and you open them in really any other software that isn't Photoshop, you're going to have problems.
right, and that's
But
because smart objects are what's used to create those mockups, and they're proprietary to Adobe. Sorry, guys, I
yeah.
have like a tequila-based Moscow Mule, and I can just feel it kicking. But so yeah, I only drink tequila. That's another fun fact about Tony. So what was I about to say?
We were talking
Oh,
about
I think if GIMP ever figures out how to do that, like their own version of lossless scaling up or down, I think they could totally like undermine Adobe's market share for sure. So
yeah, and if Affinity, if you're listening, guys, if Canva/Affinity can do something where it can read smart objects for like Photoshop mockups, and it can
yep.
just read the proprietary software. Maybe you don't want to make changes, but you still want to open the file like a pattern preview file. That would be a game changer because I am locked into Adobe because of that.
Yeah, or create something competing, I mean, like, there are so many, like, I'll go by brushes or, various whatever for Procreate, and then I download the file and I see that they're like, oh, here's the brushes for Affinity, like, because you buy the pack and you get it for like all of the software that you can use the brushes in. So I have a shit ton of Affinity stuff sitting in my OneDrive that I just need to load in, but because I bought it for Procreate and they provided it for Affinity too. So if they can just figure out like I'm a firm believer this is probably on all of their development roadmaps. You know what I'm saying? Because these are the things that are going to allow them to compete. But, and yeah, we've kind of wandered a little bit, but, this whole discussion proves this idea or this concept that you must, and that's really what we're myth busting. We're not telling you not to use Illustrator. We're not telling you that there aren't use cases for it. Because I got to tell you, geometrics in Procreate can be in Photoshop can be a bit of a bitch. Like plaids and checks and things like that. Unless you're going for a really textured, arty like look, it can be a bit of a bitch to do those in Photoshop. But that's where Illustrator makes a shit ton of sense, So, but this idea that everything you must do must be in Illustrator is full stop completely wrong. So,
yeah. And I have to jump in here. So, as somebody who's been using Illustrator forever and who was really kicking and screaming about using anything but Illustrator up until a few years ago, let me tell you why. So there are two reasons why I have always, other than the fact that I've been using them forever, and that was my software of choice. There are two reasons that I was so I will never stop using Illustrator is because one, you can resize things to any size. Now, that's not as important if you're a surface designer, but it was important for me when I was working in the film industry and I had to make a logo or a graphic that would go on a business card and a billboard. So that obviously, or if you're doing like straight up graphic design for things that are going to be built into brand identities, like signage and stuff, you don't have to use Illustrator, but you probably will want to use some sort of vector software only because if you have a client that wants to, oh, you know what, we need a sign for our store or we need to turn this into whatever. It's just easier when you have something that can be infinitely shrunken down or expanded without losing any quality. Also, the other reason that I was always, especially with patterns using Illustrator is because if I want to make a color change, I can do it in like 2 clicks versus if I want to do a color change in Photoshop, it's a little bit more cumbersome and you have to, God love you, you better have your colors on different layers because if you don't, then you are absolutely screwed. But, well, you're not absolutely screwed, but you're going to have a tough road ahead of you.
There are hacks, but they're a pain in the ass.
Right. So, but here I'm going to go ahead and defend again the notion that you don't have to use Illustrator because number one, and what I just said was, if you create your art digitally, now if you're creating analog and you're painting and you've got pen colors and it's all flat or whatever, obviously you're not going to be able to change colors. And really, if you're like a fine artist and stuff, if people are asking you to change colors, you can tell them to go fuck themselves because you're not, you know what I mean? Like that's not that's not your audience. But if you're creating art and you want to license it and it turns out, oh, well, can we get this in these colors or, or can you change this one? You get change requests all the time. If you create a file that is a raster in Procreate, just keep your colors every time you have a different color, put it on a different layer. So then you can go into Photoshop or whatever software and create an image fill with the color and then create a clipping mask. Or you can go back to Procreate if you still have your Procreate file and just fill with that color or, do something along those lines. You don't have to use Illustrator for that. The other thing is, and this is what I always do, if I know that I want to create something that is 10 by, let's say 4 inches by 8 inches, right? That's going to be the final size. Let's say I'm doing a piece of mini art or a magnet or whatever. And this is for like an illustration. I will go into Procreate and I will create it at like, what is 4x8? Let's say 16 by 32, right? So I will create it at 4 times the size that I think I'm going to need. If I can, if I am not going to run out of layers or whatever. But I will create it as large as I possibly can, because then I can always scale down.
Correct.
So, that's another reason you don't have to use Illustrator, because I have yet to run into a licensing client that wants something at a billboard size, like 24 by 36 with wall art, or with a wall mural. It's going to be a little bigger than that, but it's still not necessarily going to be, billboard size or whatever. You want to, if you're creating art, you always want to find out what the end use is going to be. If you don't know, then create as big as you can. But if you have a client or an art, or like an industry that you're designing for, okay, well, look at what the typical sizes are of, let's say you're designing, water bottles or tote bags. Look at what the typical size is of a water bottle. Okay, so your wrap is going to be 12, or let's say 14 inches wide by 8 inches tall. Just multiply that by 2 or 4. And then when you make your file in Procreate, just, you've got it bigger. So you don't have to worry about resizing it. So that right there is another reason you don't have to worry about Illustrator, because you're not going to need to expand it to 10 times its size. In what use is that going to be, in what situation is that going to be needed? Probably none.
Right. And another little hack for that is you could do 4x8, but set it at 600 DPI. And then when you bring it into a file that's a lower DPI, it's automatically going to be bigger and you're scaling it down. So like there are so many ways to work around that. And Procreate gods, we are clearly waiting for you to give us larger canvases. I'm just saying,
and more layers.
Procreate gods. They keep promising this stuff. We got the brush layers. Now we're waiting on the larger canvases. But yeah, I mean, I've only had one time in all the years I've been doing this that somebody asked me for, and this was in the last 2 years, for something that was going to go on a billboard. And I just withdrew. I was like, no, because what they wanted was not suited to, like, for me, like it was going to be an illustration. And I was like, I will not be able to provide this to you at the size that you need it. So I just withdrew, and it was like no big deal for me. But like, that's it. This one time I've been doing this work for 30 years, that was like something that was going to go on a billboard, and so, what are your use cases? And I know I sound like this is where the nerd in me comes out, because I started out as usability expert, right? And user interface design, and you do use cases. Who's using this thing? What are your use cases? And then you go from there. There are so, the majority. So the stats tell us that the majority of you listening to us are starting out. You're solopreneurs. You're just like me and Carrie. We're trying to save money. We're trying not to spend $1 million trying to make this thing work. We've already talked before we started the season about royalties. Nobody's a millionaire at this point. Well, I mean, a couple of people might be, but like, that's not what we're talking about right now. So, but the point is doing what you need to do and doing it in a way that is sustainable for your career. And quite frankly, and Adobe, if you ever hear this, I'm telling you, you charge too much fucking money for those of us that are out there trying to make this career work. And you need to think about that. So, yeah.
All right. I agree. It's absolutely unnecessary to charge that much money. And I'm going to throw one last thing in there too. So if you think you might have a piece of art while you're creating it that might need to be expanded to bigger sizes later, you can also design it with like all your smooth colors on one layer. And then you can go into Affinity, for instance, which is free now, and vectorize it, and then just keep your texture layer at, or take your texture layer out. Just say, hey, look, client, I can make this 10 times its size for you, but it's going to lose the texture. But then you still don't have to reinvent the wheel, and you can still have these like, smooth shapes and solid colors. So they'll still get the gist of the art. So yeah, there's all kinds of millions of ways around this, but don't listen to people that are like, well, if you don't use Illustrator, you can't be a surface designer, or you can't be a freelance illustrator, or you can't be an artist, because
Right.
in this day and age, it's just outdated advice.
Exactly.
And it's wrong.
And I became a freelance designer in 96. I didn't start using Illustrator with any regularity until 3 years ago. So
Wow.
there you go. Yeah, I mean, I would use Inkscape for some things, but like, honestly, all these years I've been primarily raster based. So
Nice.
that's 30 years.
Yeah, that's impressive.
90, yeah, we're at 96, literally 30 years. We're in 2026 now. 30 years where my Illustrator use has always been sporadic at best. And so,
Yeah.
and I was using Inkscape if I had anything that had that type of use case that really needed vector art. So, all right, I think we've exhausted our bitching about that. Do you?
All right, I think that's a wrap for that part.
I think that's a wrap.
Now, you guys, guess what time it is? It is time for me, Toni, to ask you the hot seat questions, which I'm actually really excited to hear what you're going to answer for some of these. So, speaking of all of these things that we were just talking about, software and stuff, Toni, I'm going to ask you the first hot seat question. What is your least favorite software platform that everyone loves, but you just can't?
So I know everybody expects me to say Illustrator here. And I know we did a whole episode about it. But no, honestly, when I sat and thought about this, TikTok. I never understood it. I don't use it. It aggravates the shit out of me. And I hate how everything is now about reels on Instagram too. But I kid you not, 2019, I'm teaching Comp 101 to freshmen. And someone was listening to something, what are you listening to? You need to put your friend. They're like, oh, it's a TikTok. And I'm like, what is TikTok? And they explained it to me. And I was like, I don't get it. I just don't get it. So I had this college freshman walk up with her phone and show me TikTok. And I have tried twice to do TikTok. And I just abandon it every single fucking time. And now my husband, he'll send me TikTok videos. And I'm like, I don't have it on my phone. It won't let me watch it. Stop sending me this shit.
Yeah, dude,
I hate TikTok.
So people send me TikTok videos all the time. And I have told my friends to stop doing that because I don't have it either. And what they do then is there are Instagram accounts and YouTube accounts with shorts where people just literally take TikTok videos and repost them. And I'm like, that's fine. I'll watch it on YouTube if it's really worth watching. But oh my God, I love that. That's so funny. And yeah, I can't figure it out. Have you ever had an account on TikTok? Have you tried to create one as an artist?
I did.
How did that go?
And it didn't, because I quickly abandoned it and deleted the account. And the funny thing is, it's kind of like the strata. So I have some friends that aren't on Instagram, but they are on TikTok. They're not on Facebook. I've got friends that are only on Facebook. And I'm like, I just can't. I'm not even, I don't even have Facebook on my phone anymore. I took that off too. I'm like, the only thing I deal with at this point is Instagram. And I barely understand Reels on Instagram. So I'm just fucking old. I don't know.
So am I. I know. I tried to make a reel not long ago on Instagram, and I was like, oh my God, I've been doing this for 3.5 hours because I'm trying to edit and I can't see the little scrubber, and I'm trying to use my finger and then it jumps and I'm like, all right. Yeah. And TikTok is basically that. So
yes.
All right.
Exactly.
Toni, I'm really, this one I'm really excited about. What is your least favorite buzzword, Toni, that you wish you could erase from everyone's vocabulary?
I thought long and hard about this one. But what I came up with was authentic. I hate honestly, if you tell me if I'm authentic is anywhere in your spiel, I just roll my eyes. I'm like, whatever. No, it's not. You know what I'm saying? I think it's lost all of its value. Authentic has become a vibe in and of itself, where it's I'm being authentic. So that means maybe I'm not going to be in makeup, or I have something slightly askew in what I'm wearing, or but it's it's still so fucking curated. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, I just can't even deal with it. And legitimately, I will say this. I try to be honest and have integrity in everything I post. And by that, I mean that I try not to put forward any picture of me that is not legitimate, that if you came to me in person, you would get a different feel for who I am. But only people who are on my personal Instagram get authentic, right? Because not everything about how I am when I let loose is suitable to me trying to tell you how to be a project manager for an artist, right?
Yeah.
Or is like appropriate if I'm trying to get you to license my patterns. So I can't claim authentic because like you're not trying to hear me like I wrote an article at one point about why fuck is the absolute best word and most versatile in the English language and why everybody should use it, right? Like, you're not going to get that on Al Medicine Designs, right?
Right.
You know, like I shared a story today on my personal Instagram about like, why do I curse? Because I fucking can, because I fucking like to, you know what I'm saying? Right. And it's like, you know, so like, are you getting authentic? No, you're not. And like, I have a rule. If you sign up to my personal shit, you get what you asked for. Don't come at me. You know what I'm saying? But
hey,
like,
wait, am I on your personal stuff? I don't know if I am.
Not. No, I'll send it to you. We can connect, Carrie.
Okay. I was going to say, cause like, this does not sound familiar to what I see on Instagram. Well, you're not going to offend me.
Oh, right. Exactly. But my point is like, you know, there have been people that are like to say older than me. And I know they go to church and they do those things. And I'm like, but you asked to be here. And so like too fucking bad is where I'm at with that. But my point is like, that is authentic. Al Medicine Designs is curated. Now it is honest, but would I call it authentic? No, because I'm not cursing like a sailor on Al Medicine Designs. You know, and same with Tony Federico Teaches, right? Like I'm trying to teach you how to project manage and design courses. It's not relevant that I love the word fuck. You know what I'm saying? So, like,
exactly.
So So I really hate that authentic has become this like bullshit buzzword. So
yep. Agreed. All right. Final hot seat question for you. What is your least this could relate to this episode too, but what is your least favorite piece of advice you hear floating around our industry?
Again, I had to think long and hard about this one, but for me, it's develop a signature style. And now I need to explain that. So my belief is that repetition and practice is going to develop a style by default, right? And that what people are really saying when they say this to you is develop your artistic point of view, which is different than a specific style. To me, style is how you hold the pen or brush, or whether you're digital analog, or what your typical line thicknesses are, your color palettes, that kind of thing. Like Carrie, no one else was going to make Reach for the Stars. That was all you. That was your point of view, right? And for me, like my haute couture ones where I'm like mashing up botanicals with like high fashion because I'm bougie and I like love fashion, right? Like that's my point of view. But like the fact that I like to use the syrup pen in Procreate, you know what I'm saying? Or the fact that I exclusively use Lisa Glanz's watercolor, brushes, like that is just, that becomes preference. How I use those brushes is all in like how, like my hand shakes. So I've developed a way of drawing that like compensates for the shake in my hands. Right. And like, so what people are calling artistic style, I don't agree. I think it's artistic point of view, right? Because
interesting.
I when I draw in real life, I use a lot of micron pens. I tend to favor the 01s and the 05s. Well, there are people out there that like the 08s, which are much thicker. You know what I'm saying? Same thing with Poscas. Like I'm using the thinner Posca markers. I'm not using the big ones. Like so that quote unquote style really is a byproduct of your preferences versus what you're actually creating, which comes from point of view, like your Meowster pieces of, was it literature, kiterature,
right?
Like I love them to death. And like, I was just like kind of scrolling and I saw it and I didn't like only half of the image was there. And I was like, Carrie's done something new. I knew it was you before I even scrolled down and saw that it was you. Right.
Mhm.
Because I was like, to me, you're the person that would come up with that mashup. Right.
Mhm.
I'm sure there are other people out there who have done something similar. No ideas happen in a vacuum. But immediately I was like, Carrie. And I was in an art show here recently and I had my survival kit in the show. So my survival kit illustration is this flat lay rendition of barware. And at the bottom of it, it says survival kit rare. So, right. So it's got like, the shaker for your drinks and it's got jiggers and strainers and like various like popular garnishes for cocktails. And I had somebody walk up to me and was like, I saw your work. And I was like, they were like, I knew it as soon as I saw it from across the room. And they were like, I knew it was you because you do food puns. And
I
like,
recognize your style too. Like the tools that you use and the color palette that you use is absolutely, I can tell when it's you for sure. Yeah, same thing. If I only see part of something, I can say, oh, I know Toni made that. So
right. Yeah. And but only part of that is my line thickness. Only part of that is my colors. Right. A lot of that is my artistic point of view. So that's
exactly. It's the things that come to your mind. Yeah. But the thing I have to add to you to say what you said too is signature style to me sounds like signature scent. Do you remember like in the 80s or was it the 80s? So remember when people were getting their colors done? Do you remember that? And like my mom got hers done. It's like, you're a winter, you're a summer. It's so 80s. But back in that era, that was also when people women were encouraged to have a signature scent. So that was what and given that it was the 80s, the scent would enter the room before you did. But
it was usually opium.
Yeah. Oh my God. Actually, I love that one. But, or like one of the 80s, like old lady perfumes, but, which I love, by the way. I love that smell. But, but that was like, that's what it reminds me of. It's like, it's like a dated version of, and a watered down way of labeling yourself. And there's also a lot of pressure that comes with that is really unnecessary. So
and as artists we should always be evolving, I think. And I think that this advice out there that you have to have a signature style locks you in and implies that you're not allowed to grow. It plants a seed of fear, like if I change I'm going to lose clients, I'm going to lose money. And I just think that's wrong and it's unfair.
And it makes it where you don't want to play or try new stuff either. So, and that sucks.
Exactly. So
awesome. Well, thank you, Toni, for answering the hot seat questions. And
my pleasure. I think that's a wrap.
About Illustrator. I think that's a wrap. Yes.
Yeah.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye. If you're loving this podcast, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And while you're at it, we'd love it if you could rate and review us. Your support helps more people discover the show and it keeps us going strong. Thanks for tuning in. It means a lot. I'm Toni.
And I'm Carrie. It's okay to be cranky.
In the meantime, keep creating.
Two Cranky Creatives is produced by me, Toni Federico, and my co-host Carrie Cantwell. Carrie handles sound editing, I wrangle marketing and communications, and together we keep this cranky train on the tracks.